which is the fire department update, and then, thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Stacy. You owe me, I got you out here a little earlier.
Stacy, by the way, you're more than welcome to stay if you like for a couple more hours. If not,
Usually on our last item, we serve booze.
thank you.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and members of the community. Thank you for the opportunity to continue supporting the City of Livingston as you evaluate how fire services are delivered to your residents. Tonight, I'll be walking you through the work completed to date, the options available to the city, and the steps needed to support implementation of a Livingston Fire Department as the council proceeds. To ground our discussion, I want to briefly revisit the key actions that brought us to this point. In early 2024, the County Board of Supervisors voted to terminate fire services in Livingston. Since then, your council has taken a series of thoughtful and necessary steps, including policy discussions on the future of fire protection, placing Measure L on the ballot to support public safety funding, and approving an interim cost-sharing agreement to keep Station 96 open while solutions were evaluated. The voters also approved Measure L, demonstrating strong community commitment to local public safety, and the council formed an ad hoc committee to guide the transition planning. From there, our team evaluated the current conditions of fire services in Livingston. First, fire facilities. The existing station is adequate to support a 3.0 staffing and provides appropriate accommodations for both male and female firefighters. It includes sufficient living space, training capacity, and storage. As the city grows, we do recommend conducting a formal standards of cover study to assess the future needs and optimal location of a second fire station. Second, engine replacement. If the city transitions away from the CAL FIRE contract, a replacement is required due to the loss of the county-owned asset. Your council has already taken action to approve the purchase of an appropriate engine. Our team reviewed the available options and supported staff's recommendation. Staffing development plan. This has been our primary area of focus. A significant portion of our work has centered on designing a staffing model that is sustainable, OSHA compliant, and appropriate for Livingston's size, call volume, and fiscal capacity. Finally, chief and training contracts. We have been in active discussions with 2 jurisdictions interested in providing contracted chief oversight and training services. These costs are estimated between $350,000 and $450,000, depending on the final structure and scope. Based on your direction to continue interim services with CAL FIRE during the transition, we put together a 2-year implementation timeline. I know this is small, it is in the agenda packet. Each of the elements on this timeline represents a core function required to safely and responsibly launch a municipal fire department. Staffing is the very first item on this implementation. Equipment, as you can see, I'm a little too far away. Dispatch coordination and mutual aid here. And then we go into your policies that will need to be adopted, and we'll be developing a chapter on different ordinances for your consideration. Also prevention ordinances and elements of prevention services that will be needed for the business community, and then community engagement. I just want to note that this is a structured phase approach, not something that we're trying to rush on your behalf, designed to preserve service continuity while you grow your local capacity. This won't be accomplished all overnight. Oh, can I go backwards? There we go. But it will be phased in over time, and we've proposed 24 months, and that's all dependent upon your interim CAL FIRE services as you progress. Let's talk about call volumes. CAL FIRE did provide us with a list of calls for 2024, and we took out the unduplicated calls to get to around 2,000. As you can see, there's some key takeaways here, and I'll move to the next slide. Medical calls and traffic collisions represent 71% of your calls. Fire calls were primarily minor events and there were no major structure fire incidents in 2024. Based on the available information that they provided to us and what we've learned in consultation with some of your paid call firefighters, that represents anywhere from 70 to 80% of those calls took place within your city limits. So what we see here is pretty consistent with what we see across the region in California. Fire agencies today are medical and rescue-driven fire service providers. So now that we understand what type of calls that your fire department will be responding to, we can start building a staffing plan. So we took a look at, to design an appropriate staffing model, we reviewed staffing models at comparable agencies throughout the Central Valley and in Northern California, including Tulare, Red Bluff, and Susanville. Tulare is especially relevant because it recently transitioned away from a CAL FIRE contract into a municipal department. Where Tulare differs geographically, we supplemented some information from Red Bluff and Susanville to ensure that we aligned with your size scale of a city and your operational needs. So here's your proposed staffing plan. It achieves a 3-0 staffing, which is widely considered the base level of necessary staffing for safety and reliability. And I will note that in the future, there will be policy moves by the state to go to a 4-0 staffing. But for now, we think that this is the best way to start with your capacity. And as your department grows and we see ladder trucks and other types of things come into service, you'll have to be mindful of that. But for the foreseeable future, this gets you a really good start. This staffing model also establishes a new classification, and it contemplates a resident firefighter program which aligns with Merced College, creating a structured pipeline of trained entry-level firefighters, complementing your paid call firefighter and supporting their inclusion into the department. I think what's really important for Livingston as it contemplates becoming its own fire department is honoring the legacy of your local residents who have given so much to this community through the fire service. The resident firefighter classification was designed in a way that your paid call firefighters could enter into service through this classification. We also, I also want to share that this shift structure is compliant with modern overtime standards. We're building this with a 56-hour work week in mind. That's something that your CAL FIRE contract hasn't contemplated in terms of cost. And we did that to prevent fatigue and manage burnout and also limit your overtime needs. With a contracted fire chief providing command oversight, which is what your organizational structure here contemplates, the city maintains OSHA compliant incident command capacity. We also took a look at some sample salary ranges from those benchmarked jurisdictions and asked your finance team to put together estimates for those classifications. Those estimates come in at between $1.4 and $1.7 million annually, and that's at low step to top step. That's what the range in those costs are. Let's talk about resources. Structure has to be paired with adequate resources in order for you to have a sustainable fire department. Your city manager and your finance team have identified potential funding sources, and they include the following. The fire fund, which we have vetted that calculation and your city team agrees is approximately $1 million and is currently being retained by the county. That's a revenue sharing element. Measure L, according to your ballot measure calculation, estimates about 2.3 million. And I think that's once it's fully implemented, you'll see receipts of that nature. And then of course, the unitary and/or general fund at the council's discretion. We understand that this is where things get a little complicated, and so to guide the conversation, our team provided examples of revenue sharing agreements used by Merced and Las Vegas, both of which return fire-related tax revenue to the agency providing the local service. Atwater also received a similar consideration when assuming responsibility for local fire services. These agreements recognize that when a city bears the cost of fire delivery, it should receive the resources tied to that service. Moving forward, Based on the work completed to date, we recommend these following steps. Bringing forward job descriptions and salary schedules to formally establish positions that will make up the Livingston Fire Department. Our team has provided drafts to staff in support of this next step, and we'll work to finalize those and bring them forward if you're ready to proceed. We recommend you finalize an interim service agreement with Merced County for CAL FIRE, ensuring continuity of service during the transition and providing time to complete training, onboarding, and mutual aid coordination. In speaking with Chief Pimentel, he advises that an independent contract with CAL FIRE will take approximately 24 months, so we recommend maintaining a relationship with Merced County for interim services. We also recommend prioritizing revenue sharing negotiations with the county, consistent with past practice in our region when cities assume local fire responsibilities. And we are asking your consideration to engage with both the City of Merced and San Consolidated to more formalize those quotes that we received verbally and get a better sense of what the scope of work would be so that we can build those contracts for you. In closing, the purpose of this work is not simply to create a fire department. The purpose is to ensure that Livingston residents receive stable, accountable, and locally directed emergency response today and as the city grows. This plan provides a responsible path to do that. It builds staffing depth, training support, and incident command capacity. It aligns your current resources with responsibilities that you are now assuming, and it allows the council and the community to maintain long-term control over service quality and costs. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.